Lots of actors have suffered serious injuries while filming, but John Hawkes permanently injured his back while lying in a bed for the whole movie, and he did it on purpose. Here's how he and other stars changed their bodies and lives forever. Hugh Jackman's legacy as Wolverine in the X-Men franchise came partially from his animalistic physicality, but also from his grisly vocal tone. Jackman's level of exertion brought out more than a few grunts and growls, but unfortunately, it appears that the years have taken their toll on the actor's actual voice. In an interview with BBC's Front Row, Jackman said that he's done damage to his voice playing Wolverine. He specified that his falsetto is, quote, not as strong as it used to be, which directly affects his work as a musical theater performer. Despite Jackman's attempts to take care of his voice, Logan is just too intense a character to play it safe, and the damage to his vocal cords is apparently a direct result. Still, it hasn't slowed Jackman down too much, as he's scheduled to appear at Radio City Music Hall throughout 2025, singing songs from some of his most popular roles, including The Greatest Showman, The Music Man, and more. While filming the intense movie Mother, Jennifer Lawrence plunged into the depths of emotional devastation for Darren Aronofsky's environmentalist allegory. While filming her character's breakdown, Lawrence was hyperventilating so hard that she tore her diaphragm and dislocated a rib. She attributes the incident to her commitment to the role, noting in an interview with Deadline that it was the first time she fully immersed herself in a performance, to the point where she struggled to turn it off between takes. In an appearance on Hot Ones, Lawrence confirmed that the rib still clicks to this day. She's still making movies, but when Entertainment Weekly asked if she would ever do something like Mother again, she quickly said no, believing she wouldn't be able to do it.
If you see the movie, you'll know exactly which day was the hardest day for me. That was tough.
Charlize Theron has had a long history of onset injuries. She sustained a shoulder injury filming The Old Guard, tore a stomach muscle for Snow White and the Huntsman, and was almost paralyzed after a neck injury shooting Aeon Flux. But it was her least significant injury that actually left the most permanent damage. During pre-production for Atomic Blonde, Theron clenched her teeth so hard during training that she cracked 2 of them. In an interview with Variety, the actor explained that she was forced to undergo surgery before the film began shooting. Having to cut one of the teeth out and root canals, it was tough. I had the removal and I had to put a donor bone in there to heal until I came back. And then I had another surgery to put a metal screw in there. Theron is likely referring to the process of dental bone grafting, in which new bone material is added into your gums to help maintain jaw shape and condition. It can be an extensive process, and at the Q&A following the film's South by Southwest premiere in March 2017, almost 2 years after training began, she said she was, quote, still dealing with it, though in typical fashion, she downplayed the injury.
I injured 2 teeth, that was about it.
Sometimes, damage can be done in even the quietest performances. Case in point, John Hawkes' beautiful turn in the sex dramedy, The Sessions. Based on a true story, Hawkes portrays Mark O'Brien, a poet who was paralyzed from the neck down due to complications from polio. In an effort to lose his virginity before he dies, he hires a sex surrogate, and sparks fly. Due to his illness, O'Brien was always in a laid-down position, and his spine was severely curved. Hawkes said he sought to honor that in his portrayal. He worked with the film's props department to create a soccer ball-sized piece of foam that would go underneath the left side of his back while filming, recreating O'Brien's spinal curve. In an interview with Vulture, Hawkes jokingly called this prosthetic the torture ball and revealed that he retains back problems from shooting the film, despite doing yoga between takes. Due to the spinal imbalance caused by the foam, Hawkes explained that one side of his spine doesn't have enough movement, while the other has way too much. The actor admitted he would likely carry some of that pain the rest of his life, but recognized it would only be a fraction of the real pain O'Brien endured throughout his own. While playing Jesus in Mel Gibson's box office hit The Passion of the Christ, Jim Caviezel endured his own suffering. The actor dealt with a dislocated shoulder from carrying the iconic cross, cuts from the chains he was shackled to, and he was even struck by lightning, which led to open heart surgery. But the most permanent mark was left during a scene in which Jesus is whipped in front of a crowd as punishment. Caviezel told Newsweek, "There was a board on my back, about a half-inch thick, so the Roman soldiers wouldn't hit my back. But one of the soldiers missed, hit me flush on the back and ripped the skin right off. It's so painful that it shocks your system." The actor recalled getting visibly angry with the actor who hit him, but that wasn't enough to save him from being accidentally whipped again. The second hit caused Caviezel to quickly walk off set and fall to the ground, his diaphragm frozen from shock. Though Caviezel recovered, a 14-inch scar was left on his back that remains to this day. Russell Crowe has suffered numerous injuries over the course of his long career, including multiple shoulder surgeries, grade 4 tears in his Achilles tendons, and a loss of cartilage in his toes. The reasons for his injuries are mostly due to the intensity of his roles. Mystery Alaska had Crowe in ice skates for 12 to 14-hour days. Cinderella Man saw Crowe train to become a genuine heavyweight boxer, and Robin Hood featured extensive stunt work. He was even injured during pre-production for a film he never ended up doing. But many of Crowe's injuries stem from arguably his most well-known role, Maximus in Ridley Scott's Gladiator. In his episode of Inside the Actors Studio, Crowe discussed the many injuries he suffered on set, including blown-out knees, scars, back problems, a dislocated rib, and more. The actor said that he was committed to doing his own stunts to make sure that the director can get the shot.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
Across the 2000s, Brendan Fraser was an action star. His slew of commercial successes, most notably the now beloved Mummy franchise, turned him into a household name and a bona fide hunk. However, it wouldn't be until 10 years after his final Mummy film that Fraser would reveal the intense physical damage his body endured as a result of his blockbuster stunt work. In a revealing interview with GQ in 2018, Fraser spoke about the 7 years spent attending hospitals to treat his numerous injuries, including having compressed spinal pads bolted together and a procedure to remove vertebrae from his spine to relieve pressure. He said, "I needed a laminectomy. The lumbar didn't take, so they had to do it again a year later, and that was just for his back." He also had a partial knee replacement and vocal cord surgery. Fraser said, "By the time I did the third Mummy picture, I was building an exoskeleton for myself daily." These injuries helped keep Fraser out of the spotlight for many years before he staged a comeback to win the 2023 Oscar for Best Actor for his role in The Whale. But Fraser told the Daily Telegraph that his days as an action star are done. "I'm older now. I don't look the way I did in those days, and I don't necessarily want to. I've made peace with who I am now." Folks in America may know Taylor Hickson from her leading role as queer witch Raelle in Freeform's Motherland Fort Salem, or as Megan, the young teenager Wade Wilson assists towards the beginning of Deadpool. Between those projects, though, Hickson had a co-starring role in the 2018 film Ghostland. During that production, she suffered a serious accident, which subsequently led to a lawsuit. The suit alleged that, while shooting a scene involving a glass door, Hickson was asked to pound hard on the glass in order to sell the emotion of the scene. When asked if it was safe to do so, director Pascal Laugier and his producers told her yes. However, the glass shattered. Hickson fell through the door and into the shards, cutting the left side of her face and requiring 70 stitches. The lawsuit led to the film's production company, aptly titled Incident Productions, being fined $40,000 for failing to uphold the Workplace Safety and Health Act. After enduring laser and silicone treatments, Hickson was left with permanent facial scarring from the accident, which can still be seen across her chin and left cheek to this day. Carl Weathers passed away in February 2024, but for a whole generation, he will always be remembered for his role as golfer mentor Derek Chubbs Peterson from Happy Gilmore. But Weathers himself remembered the role for a very different reason. While filming the scene where Chubbs falls to his death out a window, Weathers was seriously injured. He told GQ, "It was a blind fall. There are stunt bags, which maybe are like 2 feet tall, but the bag wasn't pushed all the way against the wall. So when I went out backwards, instead of hitting something flat, my body kind of got trapped, my head on the bags, and my tailbone at the wall, and so it just would crunch on the spine." It wasn't until years after the incident that Weathers found out he fractured 2 spinal vertebrae and developed bone spurs. By the time he got to a surgeon, he was told that an operation would only make things worse. Thankfully, Weathers' pain eventually lessened, but he said, "It did a kind of self-fuse in a really bad place. There were 3 or 4 years there where I was just in excruciating pain." Sean Bean got his big breakthrough role in the 1992 thriller Patriot Games, where he starred as the bad guy opposite All-American hero Harrison Ford. Sadly, Bean's Hollywood welcome was less than warm. While reshooting the film's climactic fight scene atop a flaming speedboat, Ford swung a boat hook at Bean and slashed his face underneath his eyebrow. Audiences can actually see Bean bleeding in the final film. Bean received 8 stitches, leaving a permanent scar. Not that he minds. Bean told News 13 Florida, "It's a good one. It's in the right place. Kind of a designer scar." This unfortunate incident would actually help pave the way for Bean's career. Directly following Patriot Games, he portrayed soldier Richard Sharp in the British television series Sharp. The show's makeup artist accentuated his scar and the writers added it into his backstory, setting the stage for many more rugged leading man roles to come. Martial arts icon Jackie Chan has been injured countless times in countless ways throughout his decades-spanning career. Broken noses, teeth knocked out, fractured bones, you name it. In his autobiography, I Am Jackie Chan, My Life in Action, he devotes an entire chapter to detailing all of these injuries. And according to Chan, his worst injury by far came on the set of the Hong Kong action comedy Armour of God. In the film, Chan plays an Indiana Jones-adjacent adventurer who does several high-flying stunts. For one of them, which involved jumping from a castle wall onto a nearby tree branch, Chan was unsatisfied with the first take and requested to do another. As shown in the closing credits, the second time around, the branch broke, and Chan fell headfirst to the rocky ground below. His head hit a rock, sending a fractured piece of his skull straight into his brain, which caused internal bleeding. Chan required emergency 8-hour brain surgery, during which a plastic plate was inserted into his brain to plug up the hole, something that remains to this day. The actor was also left permanently hard of hearing in one ear, and Chan recalls the stunt as the closest he's ever come to death.
Put your finger.
Oh, hell no.
Burt Reynolds was one of the biggest stars of the 1970s, but in the early 80s, his career tanked. That was caused in part by an incident on the set of the 1984 film City Heat that left him unable to work. In his memoir, But Enough About Me, Reynolds explains that things took a turn when they began shooting a fight scene. I was supposed to get hit in the head with a breakaway chair, but the guy grabbed a metal chair by mistake and caught me flush in the jaw. Reynolds was diagnosed with temporomandibular disorder, or TMD, which occurs when the joint connecting your jaw to your skull is dislodged. It causes both immense jaw pain as well as crippling sensitivities to light and sound, both of which debilitated Reynolds to the point that he wouldn't work for 2 years.
You get headaches, you can't focus on anything. A light bothered me. I couldn't look at television.
The actor sought medical attention for years to no avail. At one point, all of his bottom teeth were sawed off in an attempt to cure his condition. Eventually, he found a dentist who was able to realign both his jaw and every individual tooth in his mouth. Yikes! William Friedkin's classic horror film The Exorcist had so many production problems that it spawned its own supposed curse. Many injuries occurred on set, including life-changing fractures for the film's two leading ladies, Linda Blair and Ellen Burstyn. Blair, who was 12 years old at the time of filming, was encouraged to do the majority of her own stunts. One of these involved being strapped to a harness. The harness was not well fastened, causing it to repeatedly hit Blair's spine. Due to further technical failure, her back was fractured during one scene, the take of which is featured in the final film. This, in combination with a car accident later in life, led to her developing scoliosis. Meanwhile, Burstyn fractured her tailbone in a separate incident, which she describes in the film's 1998 making-of documentary, The Fear of God. During the scene when Reagan slaps Chris, Friedkin had Burstyn pulled down to the floor with a wire. After the first take, Burstyn told Friedkin that the pull was too harsh. Friedkin ignored her. Instead, the wire was pulled even harder on the next take, and Burstyn was sent to the hospital. That take was also used in the final film, agonizing scream and all. She was on crutches for 2 weeks and sustained permanent spinal injuries. Frank Sinatra, on top of being one of the most successful recording artists of all time, was also an accomplished actor who won an Oscar in 1954 for From Here to Eternity. But 8 years later, he almost lost a finger while filming The Manchurian Candidate. During a fight scene, Sinatra was supposed to karate chop a table. Unfortunately, a mistake led to him hitting a real table rather than a breakaway prop. He struck it so hard that he broke off a piece of the table and fractured his right pinky finger. The shot appears in the final film. According to Nancy Sinatra's book, Frank Sinatra, My Father, Frank continued shooting the scene despite the injury and never sought proper medical attention. In a special 26th anniversary interview, Sinatra shows off his finger, which appears to have limited movement. Though Sinatra remained successful, the injury caused him discomfort for the rest of his life and, oddly enough, cost him his shot at playing Dirty Harry. Sinatra was initially attached to the project but couldn't hold the character's signature pistol, leading to him being replaced by Clint Eastwood. Old-school sitcom fans will know Dick York as the doting husband Darren Stevens on the fantasy comedy series Bewitched. He was only on the show for its first 5 seasons, though, as he eventually had to quit due to a debilitating spinal injury that occurred on the last day of filming the 1959 western They Came to Cordura. According to York's autobiography, The Seesaw Girl and Me, the actor was propelling a handcar when a cast member grabbed onto its handle, creating a sudden increase in weight that, upon lifting the handle, tore York's right back muscles. A doctor prescribed the actor painkillers, and he continued to work, but his spine healed incorrectly, causing consistent pain. York slowly became addicted to painkillers, leading to a fateful seizure on the set of Bewitched that put him in the hospital. The actor was subsequently replaced on Bewitched by Dick Sargent and remained bedridden for 18 months, after which he quit drugs cold turkey. In Reap the Wild Wind, legendary star John Wayne played a shipwrecked captain caught in a high-stakes love triangle along the Florida Keys. Though the film is relatively obscure today, its production left Wayne with a long-term injury that may have kept him from serving during World War II. The conclusion of Reap the Wild Wind sees the star exploring an underwater shipwreck, climaxing with Wayne facing off against a giant squid. According to biographer Ronald L. Davis's book, Duke, The Life and Image of John Wayne, the diving sequence was filmed using a water tank that was the size of a football field. Wayne and co-star Ray Milland spent 10 days in bulky diving suits and were, at times, up to 20 feet underwater. Wayne spent so much time submerged in the tank that he developed a chronic inner ear condition. Though specific details are unconfirmed, it is possible the injury was a barotrauma caused by being unable to equalize ear organs to deep water pressure. This injury, along with long-held back pain from a reputation for doing his own stunts, has been cited by some as one of the reasons Wayne requested a military deferment during the war. The Wizard of Oz is one in a long list of classic movies that were not made under the safest conditions. Many are already aware of the physical and emotional abuse Judy Garland experienced on set, while a pyrotechnic accident left Margaret Hamilton and her stunt double with third-degree burns. However, actor Buddy Ebsen was left with the most permanent damage, and he didn't even appear in the film. We all know Jack Haley as the Tin Man, but Ebsen was originally set to play the character. He had even recorded all the songs and underwent extensive makeup tests. According to Ebsen's autobiography, The Other Side of Oz, the crew had settled on white clown face paint coated with dust made of pure aluminum. Throughout the shoot, Ebsen would occasionally sweat off the dust, so it was constantly reapplied. According to him, it was impossible not to breathe the stuff. One night after shooting, Ebsen woke up with severe difficulty breathing. At the hospital, they discovered that his lungs had been fully coated in aluminum dust, causing a toxic reaction. It took Ebsen 8 weeks to recover. During that time, he was replaced by Haley. Though Ebsen went on to have a successful career, he said the incident permanently left him with a tendency toward bronchitis and a need for air filtration systems in his home. During the silent film era, Buster Keaton was the master of physical comedy, and he paid the price, injuring himself on every feature film he ever produced. He subsequently grew an immense tolerance for physical pain, so much so that his most serious injury took him 11 years to discover. In Buster Keaton, Cut to the Chase, biographer Marion Mead details the serious injury he suffered while filming Sherlock Jr. While escaping from a moving train, Keaton grabbed onto the spout of a water tank, but he didn't expect water to begin gushing out of the spout with great force. It was so powerful that his grip loosened. He fell backward, his neck landing directly along the railroad track. He immediately blacked out and, in a rare move, called off filming for the rest of the day. However, Keaton resumed production the following morning. Sherlock Jr. would be released in 1924, but it wasn't until a doctor's appointment in 1935 that an X-ray revealed that Keaton had a fracture in his neck, which he was never aware of. Despite this, he never stopped working, but it is unclear if his neck ever healed.